Hi and welcome back to markplex.com, and if you're watching this on YouTube you may also be interested in our website, which is markplex.com, and there you will find a lot of tutorials and programs. So today's program, tutorial 123, is another take on something that I've covered a few times at Markplex, and that is programs that are looking to find support and resistance based on previous pivots and such like. So to give you an example, if we just go to the website, markplex.com, and you can see these are some of the programs that I've developed over time. Now, the only thing with them is that they have got a little complicated. So I decided to rethink this and do an implementation of the program using the dictionary. The main reason for doing this was, one, to provide some more resource on how to use the dictionary class. Also, I think it's a more efficient program. And in fact, what I'm going to do here is produce the what I've called tutorial 123 simple, which is a simple version of the program, which will also be easier to understand, I think. And then also I've done an advanced version, which I'll go through briefly, both of which are available for download. And the simple, the tutorial 123 simple, is available at no cost for Gold Pass members. So anyway, let's go straight ahead. Well, let me just show you what the program does to start with. So here's an example applied to the E-mini, and what you can see, we've got various levels here. So what the program does is it looks for high and low pivots, and when it finds a high or low pivot, it looks in the dictionary, sees if there are any other pivots at that exact level. If there are, it adds one to a counter. If there are not, then it adds it to the dictionary. So the dictionary is using, dictionaries are made up, as you may know, of keys and values, or indexes and values. And so the key we're setting to be the level made into a string, and then the value we're making that to be the number of times that pivots have occurred at a particular price. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the program. I have it here, tutorial 123 simple, and to start with, just got some housekeeping. Stating namespaces. We've got inputs and variables, which I think you'll probably just see because we use them later on in the program. And then we get into the main program. Now, first of all, this method void analysis technique initialize, this occurs when the program is started or re-initialized. And the only things we're really doing there is we're setting up the vector, we're creating a new vector from the vector class called VAL, and we're creating a new dictionary from the dictionary class called pivdict. And then what we're doing as we go through the program is at the end of each bar, we're seeing has a pivot occurred, and we're just using the normal pivot functionality from TradeStation. And I won't go into that, but if you do want to know more, you can right click and see definition of pivot. And if there is a pivot, in other words, L pivot occurred equals 1 or H pivot occurred equals 1, then we know that pivots have occurred, and we store the value, the level of the pivot, in a variable called pivval. So that's either O pivot price L for a low pivot, or O pivot price H for a high pivot. And we also plot a dot on the chart when the pivot occurred, and you'll see those when we look at the chart in a moment. Now, I've rounded the pivval down to make sure that we've just strictly got 5 decimal places. What we then do, we get to the dictionary, which is actually fairly straightforward. We're saying if pivdict, which is the name of the dictionary, dot contains. Now, as I mentioned, the name, we're calling the key of the key value pair, the value of the pivval converted into a string. So we go num to string pivval to 5 decimal places. So saying if the dictionary contains this, then the item is items, this particular item is set to be what it was plus 1. And one of the things that you'll need to be careful of is making sure that you type various things, because otherwise the program will throw an error. If, however, there is not a value in the dictionary with that key value, then what we do is we add a item to the dictionary with the key value of the num to string pivval 5 that we've just found. That's, in other words, the level to 5 decimal places, and we add 1 as the value of the number of times that the pivot has occurred, bearing in mind that hasn't been there before. Now we add it. So the program is actually keeping a record of every single level on the chart, which you'll see as we look at this more can be a good thing or a bad thing. Having done that, what we do just once, or maybe depends really on the meaning of last bar on chart X. What this does, if you have a bar that has a duration, or rather if there are several bars with the same second signature, then this may run more than once, but it really doesn't make too much difference. And what we do, use this thing, last tick status equals 2. Now, just let me explain that to start with. So we know that when the bar status 1 equals 2, it's the last tick of a bar. So what I've done is I've set this to be equal to that, but this is at the end of the program. So, and also incidentally, I have that set as an intrabar persist variable, this last tick status. The program sets that at the end of the program, and in other words means here that this is what bar status was last tick. So this is the first tick of the bar and the last bar on the chart. And what we do is we say, and we can only run this once incidentally. If you want to rerun it, you can refresh your screen. In the more advanced version, we've created the program such that it will run every time a new pivot is found. But in this one, you would have to refresh the screen. So we say, if the pivot dict count, the number of elements in the pivot dict, is greater than 9, then we do the following. First of all, we take all the values, in other words, the levels, and this could be 35, 35, 34, 34, 2, 3, etc. And we put this into a vector, which we've called val. What we then do is we use the vector quicksort, which is a function that I wrote and is included with this program, to sort the vector using a recursive method, so it's very efficient. And then what we do is we go through all the elements in the dictionary, and bear in mind they're zero base, so we go from 0 to pivdict.count -1. We look to see if there is the value of a particular level is greater than the value that was in the 8th spot, which would actually be the 9th spot in the vector. In other words, we do the sort of the vector so that we've got the higher numbers at the top. So that's going to be something like, just for the sake of argument, 35, 35, 34, 33, 32, 32, 31, etc. Whichever one is in the 8th spot, we're looking for the value to be greater than that. And if it is greater than that, we create a horizontal line. We set the persist of that to true, and then we add that to the chart. And that is all we do. And in fact, if we just go back to the chart, you'll see that it runs when the program first ran. If we want to run it again, we'd have to do Control R, and then you'd see the latest version. And this is different. This is at the end of the chart now, so you'll see that the potential support and resistance are lower down as the price has moved on. But if we just go back, you'll see how it picked up various levels throughout the history of the chart. Now, what you will find is that for certain charts, if you have a lot of data loaded, then you might not see any lines, because most of the most powerful or commonly occurring may have occurred in the past. So one thing to do is make sure that you set up format symbol, and then make sure you've got an appropriate number of days or appropriate number of bars loaded. Okay, so that's a brief run through of this first program. What I'm going to do is actually go and create another video for the second one, because I think it's going to take a little long. I'm just going to go through it briefly, but you can see here there are various advantages to the advanced program, including coloring the horizontal lines and also updating whenever a new pivot is found. Okay, so I'll call it a day here. Please go to the website where you can download this, and hopefully you'll find this useful.